I always thought I knew my family. I thought I knew the people who raised me, the faces that smiled at me every day, and the voices that told me everything would be okay. But last night shattered all of that. I sat in my room, staring at the old photograph of my parents when they were young, and I felt a chill run down my spine. Something had always felt off, but I could never put my finger on it. The text arrived just as I was about to sleep. Get up. Leave. Say nothing. My heart raced. Who could possibly know I was alone in my room at midnight? Why would anyone send me such a message? Trembling, I slipped on my shoes and moved silently through the darkened house. Every step felt like a countdown, every shadow a potential threat. As I reached the living room, I realized that the front door was slightly ajar. Someone had been inside, watching, waiting, maybe even orchestrating this entire night. The fear that clawed at my chest wasn't just for myself. It was the thought of what I might uncover if I kept moving forward. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The secrets that had been buried in my family for years were starting to unravel, and I was about to see them all. I paused at the threshold, listening to the faint creak of the stairs above me. Was it my imagination? Or had someone just moved? I swallowed hard. One thing was certain. I could never go back to the life I thought I had. Every familiar corner of this house now felt like a maze of hidden truths, and I was determined to navigate it, no matter what it cost me. I took a deep breath and stepped outside into the cold night. The air bit at my skin, but it didn't matter. My journey had begun, and the shadows of my past were waiting to confront me. I was Christiana, and I was no longer the girl who stayed silent. The question was, could I survive what I was about to uncover? I ran through the narrow streets, my heart pounding so loudly it felt like it could be heard from blocks away. The city was quiet at this hour, but every flicker of a streetlight, every shadow between buildings, made me flinch. My mind was a whirlwind of questions: who had sent that text and why? More importantly, what had been happening in my house that I never noticed before? I remembered the way my uncle had been acting lately. Always hovering, always insisting on helping me with small things, but there was a coldness in his eyes that I couldn't ignore. Why had he suddenly moved in after my parents disappeared? And the way my mother had barely answered when I asked about my father, the hesitation in her voice, was a lie I could feel in my bones. I ducked into a small cafe that was still open, trying to gather my thoughts. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through my phone, searching for any clue, any detail that could explain the chaos that had erupted overnight. Then I saw it, a photo I didn't remember taking. It was of me asleep in my room, taken from the doorway. My blood ran cold. Someone had been inside my house while I slept, watching me. That night, I realized the betrayal wasn't just a single act, it had been years in the making. Every kind word, every small gesture from those I trusted was part of a carefully constructed facade. And I had been blind, but no more. I would uncover the truth, piece by piece, and when I did, the people who had hidden in shadows all these years would pay. As I stepped back into the night, I made a silent vow. I would confront my family, I would unearth their darkest secrets, and I would not stop until I understood the full story, no matter how horrifying it might be. The first whispers of betrayal had reached my ears, but the full storm was just beginning. The next morning, I returned to the house, my mind racing with dread and determination. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind through the cracked windows made me hyper-aware. I couldn't let fear control me. I needed answers. I started in my father's study, a place I had always thought of as safe and ordinary. But the drawers were locked, papers strewn, and something smelled faintly of old smoke. Then I found it, a hidden compartment behind a bookshelf, cleverly disguised. My hands shook as I opened it, revealing a stack of letters and a small leather-bound journal. The letters were written in my father's handwriting, but the words were like daggers. Mentions of debts, threats, and meetings with someone called M. I had no idea who this person was, but their presence in my father's life felt like a key to everything. And then the journal. It revealed a side of my family I had never imagined. Secrets about deals gone wrong, betrayals among relatives, and whispers of things too dark to speak aloud. That was when I heard a faint noise upstairs. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. My heart leapt into my throat. Someone else was in the house. My uncle, I guessed. Or maybe someone I hadn't even considered. I had to act carefully. I slipped behind the staircase, peering through the railing, and saw him. He wasn't alone. A man I didn't recognize was speaking to him in hushed tones, handing over a small envelope. Everything clicked in my mind. The disappearance of my parents, my uncle's sudden move into the house, the strange messages, and now this clandestine meeting. They were hiding something far bigger than I had imagined, something that threatened me as much as it had silenced my family. I took a deep breath and whispered to myself, I will uncover this no matter what it takes. And with that, I realized my journey wasn't just about revenge or answers. It was about surviving the storm they had been orchestrating for years. The moment I stepped out of the shadows, I knew I was taking a risk, but staying hidden wouldn't bring me the truth. Every instinct screamed at me to run, yet curiosity and rage propelled me forward. I had to know what my uncle and the stranger were planning, and why my parents had vanished. I followed them at a distance as they moved to a concealed door in the back of the house. Peering through a crack, I saw a room lined with filing cabinets, maps pinned to the walls, and stacks of envelopes similar to the one I had seen exchanged. They were plotting something dangerous. Names, locations, and dates. My father had been tangled in a web far darker than I ever imagined. Then the man turned abruptly and I froze. My breath caught. He was tall, imposing, and his eyes scanned the room as if he knew someone was watching. I ducked lower, heart hammering. That was when I noticed a photograph pinned to the wall, my mother, smiling, holding me as a toddler. Beneath it, scribbled notes in my father's handwriting. She must never know. Not yet. The plan cannot fail. A flood of emotions crashed over me, betrayal, anger, and a desperate need for justice. My family had been keeping secrets, and those secrets had shaped my entire life without my consent. Yet, I realized something crucial. If I wanted to survive this, I couldn't rely on anyone in my family. I had to use the knowledge I had gained to outsmart them. I quietly retreated, clutching the letters and journal tightly. Every step I took felt like a gamble, one wrong move, and I could be discovered. But one thing was clear. I was no longer just the girl who had lost her family. I was becoming the storm that would uncover their lies and hold them accountable. As I slipped into the night, I whispered to myself, they underestimated me, and that will be their downfall. I spent the next few days in silence, letting every word from my father's notes and every clue from the letters sink in. Every hidden passage, every secret meeting, every cryptic message, they all painted a picture of deception and control that had suffocated my childhood. But the more I learned, the more I realized I could turn their own schemes against them. I started small, testing the waters. Anonymous calls, subtle manipulations, leaving cryptic notes that only certain family members could find. The fear in their eyes when they discovered the first signs of resistance was intoxicating. For the first time in my life, I felt power. I was no longer just a pawn in their game. I was the player rewriting the rules. Then came the unexpected betrayal. I had trusted someone, a confidant I thought understood my pain and my mission. But when I discovered they were feeding information back to my uncle, the betrayal cut deeper than any punishment I had endured. Anger flared, but I buried it. I couldn't let emotion ruin the plan. Every move had to be precise, calculated. Late one night, I infiltrated the family study, where I found documents I never expected to see. Bank transfers, secret property deals, and a plan that implicated my uncle in crimes my father had been trying to cover up. My pulse raced. I realized the depth of their corruption and how vulnerable they were now that I held the pieces of their puzzle. With a cold determination, I whispered into the dark, "You thought I was weak, that I wouldn't fight. But I am more dangerous than you could ever imagine." My plan was no longer about finding my parents or understanding the past. It was about making them pay for every lie, every manipulation, every scar they left on me. The morning light cut through the blinds, casting sharp lines across the room, as if marking the path I had chosen. Today, nothing could hold me back. Today, I would confront the people who had haunted my every step, who had turned my life into a labyrinth of pain and lies. My hands trembled slightly, not with fear, but with anticipation. I had rehearsed every word, every glance, every subtle threat. I entered the grand hall where my family gathered, their faces masks of indifference and superiority. But I saw through them, every smirk, every dismissive gesture, every whisper behind my back. I held the stack of documents, the evidence of every crime, every betrayal. Slowly, deliberately, I placed them on the table in front of them. "Do you recognize this?" I asked, my voice calm but edged with steel. Shock rippled through the room. My uncle's confident facade cracked first, then my aunt's forced smile faltered. Each page revealed their corruption, their greed, their lies, all traced back to the very people who had tried to control me, who had tried to erase my childhood. I watched as panic replaced arrogance, realizing that the power had shifted. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I simply watched as they scrambled, tried to justify themselves, tried to manipulate the situation once more. But it was too late. Every move they made only tightened the net I had woven over the years. I had turned their own schemes into my weapon, and now they were trapped in the consequences of their actions. As I stepped back, I felt a strange sense of release, a calm after years of torment. I had faced the shadows of my past. I had reclaimed my voice, and I had made them accountable. The scars, the pain, the stolen years, they were mine to remember, but the power to reshape the future was finally in my hands. I walked out of the hall, my head held high, my heart heavy but free. They had underestimated me, as they always did. But I had the final word, and I would never let them take it from me again.